This is not communication. It's communion. Hundreds of thousands of people have claimed contact. That will change you. It changed me.
Lost in between two worlds and two trains.
This was something that I kept buried for years. Strange things would happen. I didn't want anything to do with it anymore.
He came at me, and I fought for my life.
Ships started to pop up in the sky.
And there's this bizarre disk of light. And it is moving across the sky very fast.
The experience is often very terrifying.
If I felt fear, I would crawl under my covers, hoping that it would go away, whatever it was.
I know that we were put in that craft. I knew I was going to go to another planet.
And the being was right next to my face.
He saw two shadow beings. That's when I felt like I was going to die.
I had a real encounter with something. Even if I had to live with the fear, is to know the truth, is to know.
That's a great movie, Mr. John Yost. And you're listening to the United Public Radio Network, FM 105.3 and 107.7 globally. So it's going to go all around the globe. And it's from beautiful New Orleans, Strange Reality with Dave Emmons. And it's also called the UFO Paranormal Network. And we go by that name too. And the producer is Michelle DeRocha. She's with us today, and she just played that movie for us. Thank you so much. And I have my buddy here, John Yost. We've known each other for a couple of years now. We've been talking back and forth. A great guy, director of that movie, matter of fact, and he's also in the movie. He plays a part. He's not acting. He's talking for real in that movie with an incident that he had with E.T. some time back when he was a child. I want to tell you a little bit about my guest, John Yost. John's prestigious career began under the jurisprudence of the U.S. Treasury Department. During that process, he attained his U.S. Customs broker's license and occasionally was a paid consultant to the FBI in international trade matters. After 10 successful years, the work lost its appeal. He left his position and sought another opportunity and childhood dream that would challenge him to films. Within 4 years, John had successfully earned invitations into every national arts organization: SAG, Screen Actors Guild, AFTRA, American Federation of Television and Radio Artists, AEA, Actors Equity Association, and AGMA, American Guild of Music Artists. John eventually joined the team of RYNO Production 13 years ago and began the foundation work that would eventually become RYNO Pictures. In addition to hundreds of projects that he has written and directed, he has also produced several films: Alien Abduction, Answers. And you can look that film up and find it where it's at. We're going to talk about that, and John's going to tell you where to find it. It's his Watershed project, great movie. When he finally was able to tell the true story of what happened to him as a child, he did that in a movie. And some of the accolades that he got from people in the industry: ufologists Grant Cameron, Nick Pope, Kathleen Martin, Ralph Blumenthal, Jacques Vallée, Deb Shakti Buller, Shakti, I got it. Hollis Polk. They're all big timers in ufology, and I'll give it a thumbs up. And John Yost, welcome to the show. Is there anything I might have missed in that intro and bio?
No, I think you said too much. I appreciate you, Dave. I really appreciate your work on the radio and on podcasts, and I really appreciate your written work. Your book today was fantastic, and I know you have some other stuff coming out, and so I'm proud to know you, my friend. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I'm proud of you, John. When I saw that movie, I said, "Wow, you're really good," and this should be. you should be having multitudes of these movies where people should come to you and say, hey, John, do this for me, because that movie was great. I mean, you have these big shot ufologists backing you. Tell us where it all started for you. And I know it's in the movie, but explain it, Mr. John Yost.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, David. When I was 7 years old, I was awakened in the middle of the night by this undulating hum, kind of a drone, and it disturbed me. And when I was a little kid, I was ticked off. You know, I was tired. I wanted to sleep, and it was August, and it was very humid, and I was sleeping on the second floor of my parents' home, and it woke me up, and I was tired, and I couldn't get back to sleep. Anyway, I went to the bathroom, and I was in there for a little bit and turned on the water, and as I was coming out in the doorway of the bathroom, I opened up the door, and to my eyes, to my 7-year-old eyes, was somebody standing there, this character that I had seen 1,000 times on Japanese television called Ultraman. Now, Ultraman, for people who don't know, was this giant guy. He was silver, he had an oval head, he had very big eyes, and he fought the monsters, right? He fought, you know, creatures like a Godzilla, that sort of thing. And I loved Ultraman. I wasn't afraid of him at all. He was, you know, I thought he was cool. And the only difference is that this Ultraman was tiny. I was a 7-year-old kid. I was tiny, and it was my size. So I wasn't afraid, and we got very, very close in that doorway, and I mean like nose to nose. And then something happened. I started to feel like the ground underneath me open up, slide out from underneath me, almost like if you stand on a beach and the water comes up over your ankles, and as it goes back out, it pulls the sand out from underneath your feet, and you feel like you're falling. Well, it scared the hell out of me, to be honest with you. And I flailed like a drowning man. And when I did, I literally laid hands on this thing, this entity, this person, this somebody. And when I did, there was this blinding flash of light and all of this kaleidoscope of lights. I felt like I was moving. I didn't know, but you know, I could see blue and green and yellow and magenta just flashing by me, almost like I was in a speeding train or something. And then I'm in the middle of this, and as I come to my senses, I find myself somehow switched around with this creature, this entity, this person. This entity now has its back in the bathroom where mine was, and my back is in the hallway. And I'm completely confused, but I'm really terrified, right? And I go to swing crazily at this entity, and I say he, I don't know, it was a he, raises his hand and touches me on the left shoulder. Well, there is a powerful, like a wave hit me in the shoulder and the chest, and it literally knocked me backwards. As I said, I was on the second floor, so I fell down. Right behind me was a set of hardwood stairs, and I fell down ugly. I mean, up over, banging off walls and everything. And I land on the floor, and I am screaming like a banshee. My parents, who have a bedroom on the first floor, come running around. You know, they hear the commotion. And my father says, "What the hell's going on?" And I'm screaming. You know, there's somebody upstairs. Ultraman's upstairs. And he runs upstairs to find this intruder. And he's slamming doors. And after some time, he comes to the top of the stairs. And my mother is holding me. I'm just sobbing, just shaking. And he looks disgusted. And he looks upset at me. Because, you know, I've awakened him. And so my parents take me upstairs. And they do what parents do. You know, they look in the closet. See, there's nothing there. They look under the bed. See, there's nothing there. And after some time, they calmed me down. My mom laid me down on the bed and gave me a little kiss. And I don't know, maybe it was all of the adrenaline that was pumping through my body, but I passed out. I just went into a coma. Well, the next day, I mean, remember this, I'm an old guy, right? So when I was 7 years old, when I was 7, we're talking about 1974. And back then, you know, I mean, you'd wake up, you know what it was like. You'd wake up, it was summertime, you didn't have to go to school. You grabbed a waffle and you ran outside and played all day until your mom called you for dinner. That's the way it worked.
Right.
And so I'm playing all day. I felt achy, like somebody had beaten me up. But I come back in and my mom says, she calls me for dinner and she says, listen, we're going to get you a bath because you're disgusting. I told you it was very humid that summer. And I'm a little boy and I don't want to get a bath. And she's struggling with me. And she takes off my T-shirt and she sees all of these cuts and all of these bruises all over me, right, from the fall.
Mm-hmm.
And she looks very concerned. And then she gets to my left shoulder where I had been touched. And she says, oh, my God, what happened here, honey? And I said, Mom, I told you, Ultraman. And she looked really sad. Anyway, she said, it'll be okay. It'll be okay. So a couple of days later, my dad is taking me to the doctor's office. And as we pull into the parking lot of the doctor, he says, now listen, when we get in there, I don't want to hear any of this stuff about Ultraman. You keep that stuff to yourself. And, I kissed the ground my father walked on. I loved him, When I grew up, I wanted to be him, that sort of thing. And so I said, sure, But then again, I'm 7 years old and I have no idea why this is important or whatever. We go in, the doctor's examining me. Now, remember, this is a couple of days later. So my bruises are, kind of yellowing now. They're healing. The cuts are healing. And he gets to my shoulder and he says, whoa, sport, what's happening here? And I start to blurt out, well, there was this guy. And my dad is in the corner. And he is, he's giving me the look, Dave. Yeah. And once again, today, kids mouth off to their parents all the time, right? But back in the 70s, if your father gave you the look, you knew what the heck that meant. And so I went, I don't know. I fell. I was playing with the guys, whatever. So the doctor manipulated the mark, and it's raised, and it's quite large. It's like an inch long. And it changes color and temperature. I have it to this day. And he asked me if it hurt, and he wanted to see if there was fluid in it, this sort of thing. But before I knew it, he gave me a lollipop and sent me out the door, right? My dad is taking me home after the appointment, and as we pull into the driveway of my parents, he takes a different tone with me. He changes the timbre of his voice, and he comes off pretty harsh, and he says, now listen. I never, ever want to hear about this Ultraman guy again. You shut your mouth about it. I don't want to hear about it. I don't want you to scare your mother. I don't want you scaring your sister. You shut up about it. And now, on top of being hurt and whatever, I physically hurt. Now I'm scared. Now I'm almost feeling like I did something wrong, right? Mm-hmm. And so that really changed everything for me. And I never talked about it again. Now I grew up normal kid, I played sports in high school and college and this sort of thing. And, there were occasions I was in the shower or whatever. Somebody would say, hey, Yost, what's wrong with your shoulder? And it was like muscle memory, Dave. This morning when you woke up, you didn't say, I'd like to see clearly, so I'm going to put on these spectacles. No, you didn't do that. You went, I can't see anything. You put your glasses on, you just go about your day, right? So for me, it was almost like I just came up with things like this. Oh, I was bit by a shark. or somebody shot me, or I got harpooned. But watch what happened. In 3 seconds, 5 seconds, 7 seconds, I diffused the entire questioning. Nobody asked me about it again. They went, Yost, you're full of it, whatever. And they'd let it go. Because when I was a kid, I shut up because my father, kind of yelled at me. But as a young adult, I kind of realized that I didn't want to tell anybody that I had been having these experiences. That was not going to make me very popular.
For one thing, you worked with the government, and you had to kind of keep that hushed, right?
Well, yeah, after I left college, yeah, absolutely. But before that, and so I just never talked about it. And I never talked about it my entire life. People knew me my entire life. They never knew. And then what happened was about 4 years ago, I worked around the world. I was a U.S. customs broker. I worked for some of the largest logistics companies in the world, LEP, Schenker International. We moved material and intellectual properties and money around the world. And we navigated all of the trade agreements for all these different entities. But after about 10 years, it just lost its juice. You know what I mean? Like sometimes you do something, it just turns into a job.
Yeah.
And I just had no passion for it. And I was making a good buck, but I always wanted, as a kid, I always wanted to get into film and television and stuff. And so that's what I did. And it was very hard, you know, because
No,
I wasn't in Hollywood.
I
You know,
think John, I think we've talked before about,
yeah.
did you have any follow-up experiences from the first, that kind of aggravated you? Oh, and talking about sleep, I didn't sleep very well last night. I felt energy. I don't know what it was. I wasn't sick or anything. It's just, there's things that still happen around me paranormally. And I'm just wondering about you.
Yeah.
And after you were going through your early years, in your 20s and 30s, did you have any other experiences or something come to you, or synchronicity or anything, John?
Well, here's the thing. Things are happening to everybody all the time. Whether or not we notice them is a different thing. You know what I mean? And so my mind was so closed off, and so I was so buried in this three-dimensional world and the things that we're doing here that I had no time for it, or I ignored it. Now, I didn't realize that until I started to make the film. Something happened in the desert when I was on a shoot that scared the hell out of me and brought all of the emotion back. I was on a shoot and I saw this green, blue, luminous thing, and everybody was there. Were like 15 people with us, 17 people with us. They all saw it, and this thing moved so damn fast, and it stopped right above my head. And when it did, Dave, I felt that feeling of the floor dropping out from underneath me that I had not felt for 45 years. And it petrified me. And what happened was, I remembered all the details of what had happened when I was a kid, but all of the emotional content that I had never dealt with, you know. I mean, I sat in a corner and cried like a little baby. And you got to understand, it wasn't some 50-year-old guy dealing with it. It was a 7-year-old kid who had never dealt with it, right? And so this began my quest to make this movie, to try to find out these answers, to try to figure this thing out. Because I have to tell you something, Dave, I'm not proud of this. At the beginning of this, I didn't give a damn what anybody else's experiences were. What I cared about is how the heck can people have these experiences and still go grocery shopping? You know what I mean? Like, how can you live a normal life when this craziness is happening?
John, you mentioned something a while ago, that it's with you all the time. And sometimes we experience things from the other side and we don't really realize it. And that's true. They come in synchronicities. They come in paranormal activities. I know myself, a year or so ago, I had visitations at my house 2.5 years ago, and I got some film of it, and they were here. What happened after that? They told me to write my book, and they're telling you. That's when that was over your head. They were telling you were on the right track. Do the movie, tell people about it. And that's what the ETs want, I think, John. Is that what you found out in your research?
Yes. What I'll say to you is this, as you know, Dave, because you're an experiencer, these things are very, very intimate, very personal. They're to you. I mean, you know, and so when I was a kid, I was told, you know, about things that were going to happen and how this was all going to play out. And I think I resisted my entire life, and they forced my hand. It was just the right time or whatever. And then they cracked that door open. And after they did, to your point, then all hell broke loose. I thought, I had this naive feeling that I would make this movie kind of like cataloging these things, and it wouldn't affect me, right? And I thought, okay, well, look, you know, this is a narrative that happened when I was 7. And it's absolutely not. The synchronicities, the strangeness, the orbs, the missing time, the energy, the depressions on my bed, the interaction with energy has just increased over and over and over again. It is somehow, when that door cracks open, there's a floodgate of stuff. And you literally, this is why I think the word experiencer is so important, because it's not, you don't control it. You are literally experiencing what the heck is going on.
I was just writing, I got away from my writing my 4th book. My 3rd book will be out really soon, Angels and Supernatural Entities. It'll be out real soon. That's what the publisher told me. But writing my book a couple of nights ago, I was back on my 4th book. I've been busy. My wife's been gone in the Philippines. And so I got busy, and I got back I lost some time writing this fourth book. I'm halfway done. But
Yes, sir.
when I started writing it, the day I started back writing it pretty thoroughly, I got this clicking in my ear.
Mm.
It's kind of like a little, I guess, some kind of a signal, electronic clicking signal. And it comes to me every once in a while, and it's telling me you're doing the right thing.
Mm.
Keep going with your work. And that's exactly what's going on with you. They're telling you, and I feel it. And I don't know if anybody else that's been involved in writing books or doing documentary movies like you, I just wonder if they feel that push. The ETs are kind of giving you that synchronicity push, John. Do you feel that?
Yeah, well, I'll tell you this. You know, one of the things, and I think that you just kind of described the manifestation to yourself, is when you are being tuned in. You know when you are being observed or being talked to,
Right.
or being. Now, for me, what it is a very, very high pitched, almost white noise that I hear, and I've said on several occasions, they're here or they're coming. And it's like involuntary, it just comes out of my mouth. They're about to come, they're here.
Mm-hmm.
And I have a question for you, Dave. Actually, I'm going to turn the tables on you. I'm going to ask a question for you. Yeah, have you found at all any kind of resistance to your work? And what I'm talking about specifically is, have you found yourself targeted in any way? And I'm going to even get more specific. Any kind of strange physical ailments or illnesses that have come on suddenly without any kind of, foreknowledge or ramp up or whatever?
Well, the most recent was last night. I couldn't go to sleep, and I had nothing wrong with me. Nothing was stressing me. My stomach wasn't upset. I didn't have a headache. I wasn't sick. I just laid there, and I just felt energy, like it was just hitting me with energy. And sometimes in bed, that'll happen to me, John. I get these little synchronicities, and I hear these sounds. That actually controls my TV. It'll change channels on my TV in the bedroom. And my wife will tell me, and she doesn't get involved in a lot, but she knows. She'll hear something or she'll know something's around. She'll say, "Your buddies are here." She'll wake me up, and she said, "Your buddies are here." So she's familiar with what's going on. They do come and visit. They do come. They're invisible. They'll come in your house and they do things. And what you have to do, you have to be alert enough. And you just said the secret. You have to know your own signs and signals and synchronicities that they're communicating with you. And they're doing that with you. And this movie you did, I think they're proud of you doing that movie, to tell you the truth. The ETs want this word out. What they want to do is they want to set us up for the big disclosure, for them to be here. But there's not enough people just yet. You know that yourself. There's a lot of people who are debunking, and they're just trolling and everything else. And okay, John, enough of me. This is your interview, buddy. John Yost, go ahead and tell me what you feel about how you've been pushed into this movie, or your thoughts when you did this movie.
Yeah. Well, no, Dave, I love hearing you talk. I mean, you're a guy who knows a lot of stuff, and thank you for sharing. What happened to me was I could remember everything that had happened, except for that turnaround in that hallway. That was the part that I could not remember, and I had to literally go through a regression to figure that out. And I found out, my friend, that was not an Ultraman who took me, and they didn't take me to a ship, and they didn't experiment on me in like a classic sense. This was more like an insectoid type ant kind of creature, and I was taken to a subterranean area, and this I could smell the moisture in the air. I could feel the moisture in the air, and it was massive. I could see irregular openings in the very, very apex of this kind of dome, and I could see stalagmites and stalactites, and there was another species there, I guess, that resembled what people would call a gray, except that they weren't pointed. They didn't have pointed chins. They had elongated faces almost. And I remember as a little boy, I termed them horse heads or horse faces, not because they looked like horses. It's just that they had long face. And what had happened was they had suspended me almost like a lazy boy chair type thing. And there were these huge screens. And I mean, like 30, 50 feet in the air, huge screens. And all of these images were moving from right to left, right to left. And I'll tell you something funny. I'm a little boy. I'm 7 years old, and I was angry at these guys because they were doing this wrong. And what I mean is, a lot of people print today or type everything, but when we were kids, you learned how to write cursive.
Right.
Right.
Mhm.
And so I was learning, my cursive letters and how to write. And of course, we speak English and we write English, which is left to right. And all these images were right to left. And I was ticked off at these guys because they were doing it wrong. This is so silly, right?
Yeah.
And these images were nonsensical images. They were pictures within pictures within pictures. They were, I don't know if you've ever seen this in a mall or something. Like you'd see a picture of, say, Abraham Lincoln, right? But if you got really close, you could see that the picture of Abraham Lincoln was made up of 1,000 pictures of Abraham Lincoln, tiny pictures that all were different
Yeah.
poses.
Mhm.
And that's the kind of the way it was. And the information that was being downloaded, I guess, or transmitted to me was in between those lines. It wasn't the pictures themselves. That was kind of like the camouflage to keep my conscious mind busy. But that other stuff was downloading directly into my mind. And to your point earlier about disclosure and stuff, is that it occurred to me through that process is that very soon, within my lifetime, within your lifetime, there are going to be a series of events that cannot be disputed. They'll be so mass witnessed that they cannot be disputed. Now, people will fight about the origin and the purpose and their intention. That'll happen. But the truth is, there'll be no question on the planet right at that point of, hey, we are being visited by something, quote unquote, other.
Mhm.
And when that happens, this place is going to get a little crazy.
Yeah. The skeptics need to open up, and I think that's
well,
what your job is and my job. That's why I started writing. I call it my bucket list, and I know when you did an outstanding job on that movie. I have to go back and tell you that.
Thank you, brother.
I think the people that you interviewed actually come across to me as being real because I had the same feelings they did, and some of the same things happen. I run into these experiencers occasionally. They will bring a piece of the puzzle to me, and they'll say, "Well, I heard this kind of snapping sound next to me, and I heard that too." And I said, "Wow, there is a lot of similarities in these abductions." And I think you found that too when you interviewed these people, like the lady that was elevated in the bed. Could you tell us a little bit about some of the people you talked to, John?
Sure. Well, let me open it this way. Let me say this: that one of the reasons that the film is different than every other kind of UFO or alien, documentary that people have seen is that most documentaries are made by really, really smart people. I'm not that smart, but really, really smart people who are great investigators, but they're not really filmmakers. You know what I mean?
Right.
They got two cameras and a guy named Larry, running around. But I've been in film and television for over 30 years. So the company I work with, RYNO Pictures, has been around for 38 years. And we have every toy that you can imagine and all the editing and all the special effects. So when people watch this film, number one, it's like a movie. And also, all those other documentaries are like third-person narratives. It's like you see a clip and you hear Walter Winchell in the background going, "Back in 1950," that sort of thing. But you
do that quite well. You do that quite well.
Thank you. Me and Walter. But you saw the film from the very first frame. The audience is inside the movie. You're integrated into the film. You're watching it happen as it's happening. And so you feel the emotion that's going on. You feel yourself elated or frightened to death. And so this is part of that dynamic that pulls people into this film. The second thing is, to your point about the people involved. This movie is not about me. It's not about me at all. Okay, yeah, I'm the storyteller, right? I'm the narrator. But the truth is, this story is about us. It's about you, Dave. It's about me. It's about all humans. And the reason I say that, by the way, my point about that is this. People get fixated on these bright, shiny lights in the sky.
Right, orbs, yeah.
Yeah. Now, listen, that's really cool and very important and part of the puzzle. But the truth of the matter is, this is more about you and me and our soul and our consciousness. And the reason it is this. Think about it this way. When those lights blink out, because they disappear or they fly away, we're the only ones who are left. It's about us. It's about our humanness. It's about what we're going to do, how our decisions are going to be made, which direction we're going. So this leads me to the people in the film. Regardless if people like the film or like me or whatever, one of the things that universally is said is the same thing that you said about you watch these people and you relate with them. You hear people saying the same things that you've said.
Mm-hmm.
You see the guy who owns the shop down the street. You see the mom and dad. You see that person who has a PhD in their own company. You see, business owners and doctors. Okay, these are us. This is us. This is not some wacko kook. No, this is a normal person who had something absolutely incredible happen to them, and how they experienced it and how they're dealing with it, right? So, I mean, it's very impactful that way. And so one of the ladies that you're talking about is a woman named Ruth. And God bless her, a really, really sweet lady, married, children, grandchildren, this sort of thing. Grew up in Wisconsin. And she had these visitations when she was a kid. And like her ceiling opened up in her mind. It turned into stars, beautiful stars. And she felt herself going through that ceiling, somehow transported through there and going above and being taken onto a ship. And she had been there many times. She kind of knew what was going on. And so she had been lifted up and she had been taken to the ship, and there were experiments and whatever. And she realized when she's in the middle of this is not a dream.
Mm-hmm.
And then her memory kind of cuts off, and then she wakes up in her bed sometime later, and it's all over. And she had to explore those things, but they're almost in all of these occasions.
You're mentioning some things there, John, that are typical of being abducted. Actually, you feel like you're flying and you're zooming through the air and you're going somewhere else. And when your friend's Jacques Vallée, he actually will say that's one of the I guess one of the things that happens to you when you're abducted. You feel like you're floating or flying and you're going somewhere. So yeah, you're naming things off of these people say it's a feeling of flight, and they said don't overlook that idea. Think about it and try to get in that consciousness. And that consciousness, I guess this lady, when she was younger, she had experiences and it followed her through your life, and it actually does. I heard at one time, one expert told me, said, no, they stop at a certain age. No, they don't. They haven't stopped with me. They tamper with me with the little things.
They change. Yeah. It changes. Now think about this, Dave. Think about how logical this is. Have you changed since you were a little kid? Of course you have.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay, do you communicate to other people and yourself differently today than you did when you were 7? Of course you do. So why wouldn't this change as well? Why wouldn't you see it through different eyes? Why wouldn't it communicate to you? Why wouldn't it affect you differently or touch on things that are more important to you today? One of the things that people don't understand is that, think about how silly we are. We always try to change things because we're going to be in control of it. What we need to do is just experience it for what it is and understand it for what it is. So here's my example, okay? You find people on this planet, right? You got billions of people. They're all over the place, right? And you say you meet somebody from Malaysia, right? Or somebody from the Philippines, and they don't speak English, okay? But they're saying the same words as you say, right? They say, you might say food, and they might say, I don't know what a Filipino word for food is, or meal. Would you know?
No, I don't know. That's
Okay,
I'm
okay,
a
okay.
little bit.
Well,
I'm a
okay,
little bit
okay.
ashamed because I've been
No,
married to my
that's
wife
okay.
10 years.
That's
But
okay.
yeah,
All I mean is we communicate differently, right? Okay. Like I've heard that, and I could be off on this, but the native peoples of the Aleutian Islands and Alaska, they have like 13 different words for the word snow, right? Because everything has a different texture and all this other stuff. Okay. Also, there are places on our planet right now, cultures are different, right? So you have cultures that for example, I don't mean to be crass, but after a large meal, if you belch, that's like a compliment to the chef.
Italy,
right here, yeah,
Italy.
here in the United States, if you did that, you would be disgusting, right?
Yeah.
Okay, but look at this. Where some people wear white to a funeral or black to a funeral, right? Because you're celebrating different things. And so here's the thing. This is our planet, and these are humans communicating with humans, and we still have misunderstandings, right?
Yes.
So something so alien from another planet or another dimension or whatever is communicating with us. And so this is why I think that a lot of this stuff is through energy or through telepathy or through images. Because watch this. I don't care where you are on this planet, okay? The Philippines, Germany, the United States, Sweden, doesn't matter. Do you know what love is? Of course you do. Do you know what hate feels like? Of course you do. Do you know what fear feels like? Sure you do. But all of that is communicated not with a word, right? Like if I said the word no to you, okay, I could say no, no, hey, no. Okay, that's the same word. It means three different things. The energy of that communication changes. And that's why I think that what's happening is that communication's coming through to us. And we are now maturing in our relationship to that information, and we're understanding it more deeply.
Right.
And that's why it changes.
Right. Hence the lucid dreams, and which
Yes, sir.
regress dreams, in which a lot of people have. I've had those, and I can remember the dream. I get up in the morning and say, "Oh, I'm going to write that down." I thought to myself, "No, I don't have to. It's there already. It's embedded in my brain. It's so lucid. It's a regress dream from dealing with the ETs." But I'm sure that you have an agenda, and you're going to keep going with this UFO stuff, and your next project will probably be a film also. Is this what the ETs are downloading to you?
Well,
John?
I'll tell you something. I am experiencing some health issues right now. I got diagnosed with pancreatic cancer the other day.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, and as you know, that's not a good thing.
So,
in fact, it's one of those death sentences type thing.
Wow.
And so I am praying for a miracle.
I'm praying for you too.
Yeah, I have to tell you, a lot of people say, "Whoa, if you believe in UFOs, you can't believe in God." No, I said, no, I believe in God even more.
Yeah.
And my Lord Jesus Christ is with me at all times. So I'm not afraid of that. I wouldn't like the pain,
Yeah.
right? But so to your point, what am I doing? I am still living every day like it's my last day, and so I'm working like a dog. This story, this experience that you and I are experiencing, and millions of people on this planet are experiencing, is developing and changing. I found at the end of my film, something happened to me. I paused it at the end of the film. I said, what is it about these bright, shiny lights in the sky that make me want to change? Make me want to do something different. Make me look at the world different. Why do I have more empathy? Why? And it's really what it is it's a perspective thing. Like when you're a young kid, you don't like babies in restaurants. You become a parent and you kind of have a different perspective, right? You kind of have empathy for this sort of thing. And what's happened is when you understand that we are not alone, when you truly understand that, you really change. You spiritually change, you mentally change, your consciousness change. And so at the end of this film, I said, look, I'm ending up with more questions than answers.
Yes.
And these things are affecting me today, like you said last night. And I didn't want to jump on your bandwagon, but there was something that happened here in my bedroom last night. It was totally bizarre again. And so I'm raising money for the next film. The first film is called Alien Abduction Answers, as you know. Right. And what it does is it takes people, the world, from where it is. It doesn't denigrate people who are afraid. It says, look, you can be afraid. It's real. It happens. I was petrified myself. So it takes the world from ignorance, and I don't mean that as a pejorative. I mean that as, look, you don't know, so you're afraid. You don't know what's in the dark, so you're scared. So it takes people, the viewer, from a place of fear, and it kind of shepherds them through that ignorance and fear to the other side. Do you have some sort of understanding, right? So my next film is called Alien Abduction: Awakening. Okay. And the idea is to take the people from that place of some understanding, not having all the answers, but some understanding, to a place of integration. Now, what I mean by that is this. Look, if you know certain facts and certain details, you can make decisions. I'll give you a silly example. Let's suppose you walk into a dark room, right? And you see a shadow on the wall, and you go, what the heck is that? Right? Ignorance and fear. You turn on the light. Oh, that's my jacket on the coat rack. Okay. Well, look, now you have something you can literally hang your hat on. Okay. But now you can make a decision. You can say, look, I'm never going to that room again. That's a decision. It might not be a valid one, but you could make it. Mm-hmm. You could also say, hey, I'm going to hang that sucker up in the closet. Or you can say, hey, I am going to move that coat rack out of the way. I'm going to throw it away. You can do things because you know a little bit of information. And so what I'm finding is, like you, my friend, who I love. I think the world of you.
I do too. I think the world of you, buddy.
Thank you, brother. Thank you. So look, you had these experiences, right? You've had a life full of experiences, ups and downs and all kinds, and you had a little wisdom because of that. And so what you did was you encapsulated that. You took what happened to you, you integrated it, and you shared it, right? It was a development. You said, okay, look, I'm no longer guessing that something is happening. I see something is happening. I'm going to dissect it. I could turn my back on this, but I'm not going to. Now, you could have. That could have been a decision for you. And a lot of people do. And by the way, Dave, I was a coward for almost 50 years. Well, I was a coward. I turned my back on it, brother. Yeah. But you turned around, and then I turned around. And there are people turning around all over this planet. So my films are more, like I said, more about us. And what they are is, they're not all the answers, but what they are landmarks. People can see it. Maybe they'd never breathe these questions out loud to their friends and family, but they can sit in the safety of their living room and watch on their sofa. And if they can't handle it, they can turn it off. They can watch a little bit, or they can continue on. And what happens is, as you know, some things will resonate completely with you. Some things will fill in gaps that you never thought even to ask. Right. And then some things will be completely devoid of your experience, and they will make you wonder, make you think.
Yeah, John, this third book that I've got out with Angels, I went into a lot of research, and I asked mutual buddy Grant Cameron one time.
Oh, yeah.
I had him on the air a couple of years ago. And I asked him, what's the difference between a poltergeist, a ghost, an ET, and an angel? And he sat there, and I thought, okay, Grant, he said nothing. He said there is no difference. They all come through dimensional travels. They can come from one spot to another because they can travel in time is nothing to them. And it's spiritual. And this is what I want to leave with you in the thoughts of what you're fighting health-wise. These experiences I've had they've been spiritual. They're scary at first, but then you start thinking about it. Man, I feel energized. I feel spiritual, that I'm able to see on the other side, and I see things in other dimensions. I think that the Bible has a lot of confusion between ETs and angels, and they can be one or the other. I'm going to pray for God and Jesus to heal you, John.
Thank you.
But
brother.
I'm also going to pray for one of your guardian angels, in which they refer to as angels in the Bible, but we sometimes know as the bright enlightened ETs, the ones that are really the ones that'll come and heal you. You've heard of stories of extraterrestrials healing people.
I've heard thousands of stories like that. Yeah.
Let's pray that happens to you, either one way or the other, directly from God or indirectly from God with one of his helpers. That's what I'm praying for you.
Amen. Amen, brother. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah. So yeah. Now getting back to the critics, I know that I didn't care after a while. After I was in my 30s. When I started, I was playing music and everything, but I never talked about it that much. But I did bring it up. But I started getting to the point where if they didn't believe me, I would accept this. I always say, well, if you got to see one to believe it, I'm fine with that. But don't call me crazy because I've had my experiences.
Yeah.
Because that's not fair. You're hitting below the belt. Is that what you feel too, John, when you talk to critics?
Dave, I tell you, I love the way you phrase things. I do. You and I could just sit around and talk all night, I'm sure. I'll tell you this. Like I said, I'm not a smart guy. So what I try to do is I try to tell little stories.
Yes, you are.
Thank you, brother. I tell little stories to help me understand difficult concepts. So here's the thing. When people say, hey, I got to see it to believe it, or it's not real or whatever. Okay. I'll tell you two little things real quick. I had this kind of argument with this hardcore atheist. And when I mean atheist, I mean he didn't believe in anything. I mean anything, angels, demons, anything that he couldn't see, whatever. Okay. And I just said, well, listen, I invite you to stand in front of an x-ray machine for 2 weeks. You're about to have a bad day. Now, you can't see the x-rays, but they see you, right? They're going to cook him. Yeah. And then I say, okay, look, here's another example that makes sense to people. I had a podcast not that long ago with somebody in the UK. And I said, hey, what is the weather like there? And they said, oh, it's rainy and dreary and everything. And I said, you're a liar. It is bright and sunny out here. So you're a liar. I'm not experiencing that rain. So you are wrong. That's ridiculous, right? This is the argument that these people have. And I always wonder about that. I always wonder. And what it really is that we as humans, we want to control the narrative, right? Mm-hmm. So we want to box things. We want to put a name on it, because if we can do that, then we feel safe. If you think about it, Dave, we're really not people of the earth anymore. We're people of our own little matrix. Watch this. Here's an example.
Right.
You woke up this morning and you pressed a button for magic coffee, right? It came out of a little thing. Okay, you touched a button on a little box and you can talk to anybody on the face of the planet. If it was too cold, you touched a button, it got warm. If it was too warm, you touched the button, you got into an air-conditioned car or a heated car, and you went to an air-conditioned or heated office. We don't live in the world anymore. We live in this bubble that we've created. So we literally control everything that we do. And so when these experiences, they're so foreign to folks, they're like, this can't possibly be true because I've never experienced it. But here is the moral to the story. Watch. If that's the case, right, and these things do not exist and people are delusional and all this other stuff, then the people, my critics, they have to be correct, 100% of the time. One of the things that Carl Sagan said that I think is just crap, he said, extraordinary claims require extraordinary proof. That's BS. Mm-hmm. Listen, claims require proof, regardless. It doesn't have to be extraordinary. It has to be the truth. It has to be factual. Okay, so watch this. The critics have to be right 100% of the time. I only have to be right once.
Right.
Just once. Mm-hmm. And so that's the way I kind of look at it.
Yeah, I've been downloaded a lot of things, and actually downloaded. They can actually see the future, these ETs. And they download into you. They can actually tell you what's going to happen. It's happened to me several times. Yeah. I had these fortunate dreams that I saw into the future. And I actually, a week or 2 weeks ago, I heard a voice in my left ear where I think there's an implant, because I touched my teeth with my tongue and it rings. And so I'm going to an ear doctor Monday. And I don't know what, I've seen 3 other doctors. They can't explain it. They can't explain a lot of things that's happened to me. And I actually give my main doctor a copy of my book, so she can read it and say, oh, that's what was going on with this guy. So yeah, but I get these clicks, and I heard a voice the other, it was about 2 or 3 weeks before my wife left, and I heard this voice in my left ear, and they can talk to you in a voice. They can do anything they want. They have the intelligence to do whatever they want and manipulate our thinking, our consciousness, and the whole bit, and they can tell us things. And I heard this voice says, in your next change, do you still want to be a veteran? I got up and I said, what was that? It was just as clear as the day. It was a woman's voice. Says, in your next change, do you still want to be a veteran? That means we're going to be, I really feel we're going to be reincarnated, and ETs know this, and that's why they come back and visit us. Some of these ETs live for 500 years, 1,000 years, and they come down and visit us, and they're tweaking us, and they're watching us and our DNA. So the consciousness you mentioned also into your movie. What did the consciousness play in the movie? Could you tell us a little bit about that, John?
Yeah, I came to this kind of idea that, you know, I couldn't understand why certain things were physical and certain things were, you know, ethereal or spiritual or transdimensional. I keep saying to you that I'm not that bright. I'm telling you, I'm not that bright. I'm trying to be honest with you. So I'm trying to, it's almost like trying to wrap your arms around an elephant. It's just too much. You know what I mean? And so here's a positive question. So are you a fine looking young buck with a hat? Are you wearing a hat? Or are you a hat wearing a man? You're a man wearing a hat, right? So if you took your hat off and just set it on the desk, it wouldn't jump around. It wouldn't be animated, right? It wouldn't, because it has no life. You are what powers that life. So expand that out. Okay, so are you a man with a consciousness, a soul, a mind, or are you a mind, a soul, a consciousness with a man, almost like a spacesuit that you're kind of experiencing this world?
Right.
Now, okay, so this is where my head goes. And I said, that's interesting. I said, well, is there any kind of proof of that? And here it is. Here's the proof. There are two examples I can give. I'm sure there are many, but these are the two. Have you ever, or anybody in your audience, ever had this experience where you're in a crowd or in your car, whatever, and you felt like somebody was looking at you, and you turn around, you see them, they're across the way.
Yes.
Or vice versa, where you're looking at something and they turn around, they're across a room. Okay, now that's interesting. Now watch. Let's make it even more difficult. Has this ever happened to you or anybody in your audience? Have you ever been thinking about somebody and they call you or they text you?
Yes.
They say, I was just thinking about you. Or vice versa. Now watch this. Watch this. If this is just you and me, Dave, John and Dave and John, that's called a coincidence, right? If it's everybody on the damn planet, that's called a condition. That's called an existing condition. Now, how can that possibly be the case if everything that's about you, David, is in this bone box, your skull? It can't be true. You have to be like out here, almost like we are antennas that are kind of plugged into this consciousness.
Yes,
we're almost like radios. Now, when you think about this, you know, a couple hundred years ago, I'd say, hey, listen, we got this magic box, talks, right? And you put it up there and you say, oh, that's nothing. It doesn't work. Wait a minute. You got to plug it in. You got to power it. Okay, fine. You power it. Great. I don't hear anything. All I hear is white noise. You got to tune it. Okay, so now you tune it. Now you hear this little voice coming out. Okay, so are there little pygmy people inside that radio? No. This is energy that's being broadcast through the air, permeating bodies and everything else, and it's coming down and being translated into a signal that we can perceive.
You know, you talk about quantum theory and the quantum leaps, where a DNA can be in one little dish in a scientific lab, and about 500 miles away, they can have a similar DNA setup, and whatever they do to that DNA affects the other one. So 500 miles away, entanglement. There you go.
Yes, sir.
And it's all about consciousness, and we have a soul, and we just have a flesh body that we use. It's like we're actually renting it, you know, for a little while, and hopefully for a long time. And I'm praying that you will have many years, my friend.
Thank you, friend.
You will have many friends. I'll be praying. I'll even send my good ETs your way. Okay.
Oh, thank you, brother.
The angelic ones, But
I accept them.
the consciousness is really the key to it, and that's what the ETs want us to have. And I know a lot of people who say, well, what kind of books do you write? I said, well, I wrote a UFO book. I wrote a war book. I wrote an angel book. and they said a UFO book, we don't believe in that, and they turn away. They turn away from it. And these are mostly like religious people that have this idea, but if they look in the Bible, and a lot of scientists now are looking at the Bible, they're starting to say that ETs were involved throughout the Bible, Ezekiel and all of them. You know?
Well, you know what? This is the thing that always kills me, is this. Listen, we're on the earth, right? Okay, so anything that's not from the earth is extraterrestrial. Anything.
Right.
So for very religious people, I say, well, angels are not from the earth.
Bingo.
So they are extraterrestrial.
Bingo.
You know, you can. I don't understand how people can be so narrow-minded or so focused. And what it is, honestly, David, it comes back to what I said earlier. It comes back to fear, and it comes back to lack of control. They need to control the narrative. You know, I heard somebody say to me the most incredible thing. They said, "I believe what I believe," and I said, "Yes, you do."
You said a lot right there, just in that last couple of minutes, John. I really appreciated what people they shouldn't be so skeptic. They should open their minds up. And one of the things is in the Bible it says, "Look up and you shall see God," but you're actually looking up, and you'll see ETs probably. But how are they all connected? We're all connected in this 11 universes, and we are part of God. We are God. Our souls and our spirits are
I mean, look, he breathed the breath of life into us. He put a piece of himself into us. This is the thing. I'll tell you this. I know we're running out of time, but let me just share this with you. There are three types of people in the world. You got people who are very, very religious, very, very dogmatic. Okay. And what they believe in is a God creator, the source of all. Okay, great. Then you've got agnostic people. Agnostic people say, I'm not quite sure, but you know what? There's this intelligent design around. So maybe we live in a matrix. Okay, well, that takes a coder or somebody who created the matrix. And then you've got atheists who say, listen, everything came from the Big Bang, and this is what, okay. But in all three of these cases, they came from one source. Now watch this, we'll push it down. That one source, regardless of what you call it, it's one source. Right. Now watch this. That means that if we are children of God or pieces of the matrix or just stardust, we're all part of the same thing. And that also means that they are also part and parcel of that one source.
One quick question, John.
Go ahead.
You interviewed some atheists. Do they believe in ETs?
Atheists don't believe in anything except themselves. They're the kind of people who would scream out their own name during sex. me.
I would never be an atheist. I believe in the source. I believe in God. Now, tell us where we can find the movie and where we can find your sites that we can go to.
Sure. The film is called Alien Abduction Answers. And in the United States and Canada, you can find it on Amazon. You can find it on Apple TV, Google Play, YouTube. And then on the 29th, which is this Saturday, there will be a pay-per-view international event on KGRA radio. And there'll be a little pre-show. There'll be they'll screen the film, and then there's going to be an afterwards. There'll be a panel. And I'll be on the panel to answer questions. And this will be a live panel, meaning that people from around the world can call in with questions. So it's going to be kind of cool. And then it'll be available internationally after that.
Right. You know, this network also goes worldwide.
Yeah.
We have a lot of different countries that listen
I'm excited
to us. Yeah.
I'm excited.
Okay, I guess we're about ready to close. Anything else you want to say real quick, John?
I love Dave Emmons.
Oh, I love John, and I want you to keep going. I want you to come back next year with another movie and another movie. And
thank you, brother.
You've been listening to the United Public Radio Network. I'm in a hurry, you see. The United Public Radio Network, FM 105.3 and 107.7 globally, and it's from beautiful New Orleans. It's a Strange Reality with Dave Emmons. It's also called UFO Paranormal Network. And I had the pleasure of having my great friend John Yost on the show. Thank you so much, John. And please watch the movie. It's a great movie, directed really well, and he acted in it too. Not acted, but he was in there telling his stories. I don't like people when they say stories. I like experiences, true experiences. So we want to say good night. We hope that you enjoyed the show, everybody.
Good night.
Thank you, John.
Yes, sir.